There's a spot out on the edge of town where no one should be walking alone at night. No streetlights, no open businesses, just rusted fences and dark warehouses that have been locked up since the pandemic killed third shift. And yet, for the past 6 nights, the same man gets off my bus right there. Same time, same place, and disappears into the dark like he's got somewhere to be. My name's Eddie Marston. I've been driving night buses in North Bryan County for 12 years. I've seen everything: drunks, fights, fare dodgers, even a guy once trying to bring a live turkey on board. But nothing rattled me like what started happening last October on the Route 92 loop. I drive the Route 92 night loop, 7:45 p.m. to 3:15 a.m., mostly quiet except for the bar crowd around midnight. The loop passes through residential zones, a shuttered outlet mall, and the old industrial park out near Denby Road, where most stops are just for show now. Maybe one rider every other week. The guy started showing up last Tuesday. Mid-30s, pale, wiry, maybe 6 feet. Didn't speak. Always wore the same canvas jacket and black boots. No bag, no phone out. He'd board on Laren Street and ride until the Milson turnaround, past the last open gas station right near the old foam plant. Nothing's there but a collapsed loading dock and busted fence. He'd step off, not look back, and just walk. Not fast, not hesitant, just gone. At first I figured he worked night security, but by the 4th night I started paying more attention. There were no lights out there, not even motion sensors on the buildings, no cars parked anywhere, just chain link fences and grass growing through cracked asphalt. I mentioned it to another driver during our changeover, and she raised an eyebrow. "Which plant?" she asked. "The old Milson lot," I said. She frowned. "That whole stretch got condemned. City boarded it up last year. No one's supposed to be out there." Next night, he boarded again. Same spot, sat in the same seat, quiet, and got off at the same stop. Thursday night, I pulled the bus forward slowly after he got off. Just wanted to watch a second longer, out of curiosity. He didn't walk toward any structure, didn't check a gate or key into a building, just veered into a brush path behind the old freight terminal, a path I didn't even know was there. And something about the way he moved, not lost, not wandering, felt rehearsed, like he'd done this exact walk dozens of times. But for what? That path didn't go anywhere. Past that tree line is just drainage ditches and an access road that's been shut for years. Friday night, he didn't show. I told myself maybe that was the end of it. Maybe it had all been legit. Contract work, urban explorer, or just some guy who liked walking at night. The bus was nearly empty that night, just a teenage couple and a woman heading to a late shift at the hospital. No eerie passengers, no watching the side mirror while someone wandered into the dark. For the first time all week, I didn't feel that crawling tension in my chest. No dread, no second-guessing the mirrors. I didn't even glance at the Milson stop as we passed it, just kept driving. Saturday, 11:42 p.m., he got on again. But something was different. He boarded at a later stop than usual, and instead of sitting halfway back like always, he sat right behind me. I could see him in the mirror. He was staring out the window, but not like he was looking at anything, more like he was waiting. We passed the Milson stop. He didn't move. I called it out automatically. "Milson Industrial, next stop." But he stayed seated. When we passed it fully, he finally spoke. "You ever walk back there?" "Where?" I asked, glancing at him in the mirror. "Milson Industrial," he said. "Past the fence." "No," I told him, trying not to sound uneasy. "Nothing back there." He didn't reply, just kept looking at me like he was deciding something. That night I couldn't stop thinking about that path. So after I clocked out, I drove back on my own. Parked at the gas station, and walked up to where the Milson turnaround cuts through the fence line. The brush was denser than I remembered, but there was a path. Narrow, but walked. Recent footprints in the dirt. I didn't go far. Just far enough to see the trail bend sharply, then vanish behind a mound of collapsed concrete. Something made a sound behind that bend, like breath, like someone shifting their weight. I turned around fast and got the hell out of there. Didn't even look back. I didn't tell anyone. Not then. Next night, he boarded again. Same time, same spot. Sat right behind me. Didn't say a word until we reached the final stop at Brentley Square. I kept the doors open. Waited. "All right, man. This is the last stop." He didn't move. Just looked at me and said, "Where do you live?" I laughed a little too hard. "You mean, generally?" "No," he said flat. "Where do you live? Which way do you go home?" There was no aggression in his tone, just emptiness. Then he added, "Figured I'd ask about you, since you got off the bus and followed me." I didn't say anything. He leaned forward just enough that I could hear the next part clearly. "You like watching people go into the dark? Maybe now it's your turn." I stepped off the bus and waved over station security. By the time they came around, he was gone. Not walked off. Gone. No one saw him exit. No one passed us in the terminal. We pulled the onboard footage just to be sure. The camera showed him boarding, sitting, speaking to me. Then at 3:07 a.m., the video glitched for maybe 2 seconds. Pixel smear, static pop. When it cleared, his seat was empty. No one had stood up. No doors opened. Dispatch logged it as a corrupted file. Said no tech issue had been reported that night. When I tried to file the incident as a refusal to exit, the supervisor waved it off. "Don't worry about it. Happens more often than you'd think." I asked him what that meant. He didn't answer. 3 nights later, a new rider boarded at Laren Street. Quiet, pale, average build. I thought it was him at first. But no. Different clothes, thicker beard, different posture. Still, he sat in the same seat. Rode to the same stop. I watched him walk into the dark, following that same invisible path. That night, I checked old city maps from 2004. There used to be worker housing out there, company-owned trailers, long since cleared. 12 families were evicted after the plant shut down. A few of them were never found. The fire in 2006 destroyed 6 trailers completely. The report listed 1 official missing person, but locals say there were more. Squatters, old tenants, people who slipped through the cracks. And every now and then, someone boards the bus late, face I don't recognize. No bag. That same hollow quiet. Maybe it's him. Maybe it's someone else from back there. Either way, I never ask where they're going. I just make the stop at Milson Industrial, open the door, and wait for them to get off. There's a stop out near Milson Industrial, the edge of the warehouse district where everything's shuttered after dark. No houses, no lights, just chain link fences and shipping docks. Nobody should be getting off there. But for 6 nights in a row, the fare log shows someone tapping in around 12:42 a.m. and getting off at Milson. Problem is, I never saw anyone board, and I drive the route. It's an easy route to memorize. 15 stops, 3 terminals, a loop through the Grover transfer station, and then that long dead stretch past Milson. The buildings out there are just massive empty shells, old shipping hubs, prefab warehouses, chemical storage with busted sodium lights blinking overhead. It's not the kind of place anyone would want to walk through alone, let alone wait for a bus. But that's what didn't sit right. If someone was using that stop every night, they'd have nowhere to go. There are no apartments, no open businesses, just locked gates and quiet lots. I kept thinking, maybe it's a factory worker on night shift. But nobody boards going the other way. Nobody ever comes back. The 216's middle leg, from Grover Terminal to Milson, is the loneliest part. No cameras, no stops with shelter lighting. The warehouses are all fenced up, and the yards are posted with no trespassing signs. Nothing moves out there at night except stray cats and windblown trash. That section takes about 20 minutes. If someone boards at Grover Terminal around 12:40, it's just me and them until the Milsons stop. But even that shouldn't matter. The night ridership is light, maybe 4 or 5 people total. I know each face by now, except this one. You start to notice the odd patterns after a while. Some people ride once and never again. Others show up every third day like clockwork. But this phantom rider, I couldn't remember ever seeing them. And that's weird, because they kept using the same card ID. The log showed it. Same internal code, same rider footprint. The system thought they were real. It bugged me enough that I started printing the ride manifests at the end of each shift. I'd circle the anomalies in red and bring them to dispatch, just casually. You guys seen this? Most of the time they just shrugged, said the software had hiccups. One guy even joked that the fare reader was picking up ghosts. But it wasn't just the logs that threw me. One night I thought I actually heard the back door open. You know that hydraulic hiss when the seals break? But I hadn't hit the release. I was sitting there watching the intersection light change, and I swear I felt the weight shift on the rear axle, like someone got up and moved. But when I turned around, the cabin was empty. I was running my post-shift checklist when I noticed something strange on the fare logs. A tap-in at 12:42 a.m. at Grover Terminal, route segment B. I thought, okay, maybe I missed it. But the next night, it happened again. Same timestamp, same tap-in. But I remembered that ride clearly. No one boarded at 12:42. I even wrote down the 3 riders that night just for reference, and none of them got on at Grover. I asked one of the dispatchers if the readers were having issues at Grover. He pulled up the back end and said, nope, all units reporting fine. No delays, no skips, nothing unusual. Then he said something weird. If it's reading taps with no borders, maybe the old admin cards. I started checking the pad myself during boarding. At 12:42, I'd glance down at the light, see if it flashed. And sure enough, it did. A quick green flicker, confirmed tap. But nobody was there. Nobody even near the door. It happened twice that week. Always same time. Always the same seat that looked a little too pressed down when I passed it. The reader beeped. Clear as day. I even leaned toward it, half expecting someone to emerge from the shadows or step on late. But the air was still. The terminal was dead quiet. And when I stepped out of the bus to look around, the only movement was the vending machine restocking guy closing his truck 2 bays down. I told myself maybe it was a card glitch. Could have been a ghost tap. Sometimes a faulty pass triggers the reader even if nobody boards. So on night 6, I kept my eyes glued to the front. 12:42 rolled up. Nothing. No one in the terminal bay. And yet, the reader beeped. Light turned green. I stared at the pad. No card, no hand, nothing there. Just a beep, like someone had passed through. And in the mirror, I thought I saw a shift in the 3rd seat, like a weight settling. I kept driving, but felt like I wasn't alone. The hairs on my arms were up. Every time I glanced back in the mirror, I half expected to see a coat sleeve or boot toe. I couldn't explain it. It wasn't fear exactly, more like tension. A sense that something wasn't aligning with reality. When I got to Milson, I slowed down and opened the back door. No one got off. But I swear I heard footsteps on the gravel, just behind the curb. It was so faint, I almost convinced myself it was wind. But wind doesn't echo footsteps, not like that. I didn't know what to do. You can't report a fare tap from an invisible person. I started checking the tire pressure and undercarriage during my break. just to be sure I wasn't missing a stowaway or prank. But the bus was always clean. Empty, and yet not. I stopped the bus right there in the lane and got up. Walked the aisle front to back. Every seat was empty. No bags, no jackets, nothing. I went outside with my flashlight and circled the bus. Maybe someone jumped off. But there was nobody around. Just the terminal's flickering sodium lights and the hum of vending machines. When I got back on, I took a picture of the fare pad. Timestamp 12:42:11 a.m. Log, single tap. But the camera footage didn't show anyone stepping in. That night I barely slept. My mind kept replaying it. The beep, the seat indent, the hiss of the door. I started wondering if someone had cloned a card or hacked the reader. But even if they had, why? What would be the point? I asked the mechanics to run a diagnostic on the fare pad. They said it was functioning normally. No signs of tampering. But they couldn't explain how it was registering a card without a person. One of the younger techs said, maybe someone found an old badge. A system key or tester card. Some of those weren't logged to names. That caught my attention. I asked him to look up the badge code in the back-end system. What he found gave me chills. I ran it by my supervisor in the morning. Said maybe someone scanned an old key card or was messing with the system. She laughed and said, it's probably a delay in the log. The reader stores ghost entries sometimes. I didn't like the word ghost, but I let it go. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was a tech issue. I deleted the photo and tried to forget it. Drove the next 2 nights with headphones in, podcasts going, trying not to check the log until after shift. But my mind wouldn't drop it. Every night, the same time, the same green flash on the pad. It didn't feel random anymore. It felt rehearsed. I kept track in a notebook. 6 nights in a row, same tap. Always 12:42. Always at Grover. Always exiting at Milson. There were no returns, no round trips. Just a one-way ride to nowhere. Eventually, I realized I was scared to check the mirror. I kept the overhead lights dimmer than usual, convincing myself it was for energy saving. But really, I didn't want to see what wasn't supposed to be there. Then I noticed something worse. A second tap-in, not 1, 2, both between 12:40 and 12:45. The reader logged them 5 minutes apart. But again, I'd driven that stretch alone. The bus was empty, and no one got off. I submitted a report to the IT department, requesting data from the reader. They flagged the IDs. Both were issued from a non-public range, likely old employee cards, cards that should have been deactivated years ago. But someone, or something, was still using them. I dug deeper, pulled every fare log I could from the last 2 weeks. They showed a pattern. Card ID 004 AC0, 004 AC1, then 004 AC2. It was sequential, almost like someone testing multiple badges. I emailed a city contact and asked what those ID ranges used to correspond to. She wrote back, internal staff access. Discontinued after system upgrade. Shouldn't be in circulation. But they were, and someone was using them to ride my bus. I requested reassignment, said I'd take a downgrade if needed. But they said night routes were short-staffed. Either I drove the 216 or I lost the night premium. So I kept driving, but I brought my own GoPro and aimed it at the reader. I also stopped opening the rear doors unless I saw someone waiting. That's when the real trouble started. One night I felt the bus tilt slightly, like someone was moving down the aisle, even though I was driving alone. The weight felt real, like footsteps behind me. I didn't want to panic, so I kept it calm, drove like normal. But when I pulled into Milson, the weight vanished, like whoever, or whatever it was, had stepped off. Only I hadn't opened the doors, not even the front. The log showed no exit, no alarm, no issue. The GoPro, it glitched at 12:43 and resumed at 12:48. I backed up the footage onto a USB and kept it, just in case. Still haven't shown it to anyone. Not yet. Because I'm not sure what it proves. All it shows is a fare pad blinking green, with no one there. That night, I didn't drive back to the depot. I parked in a well-lit gas station and sat with the lights on, hands gripping the wheel. Something had changed. I wasn't just a driver anymore. I was being used, like a courier. For what, I still don't know. The break point came when Officer DeWitt boarded mid-route. He was catching a ride to a nearby substation. I told him what was happening, sort of half-joking, expecting him to roll his eyes. Instead, he looked pale. Said he'd taken that route himself late one night and noticed the same thing. Empty bus, but his fare receipt listed 2 passengers besides him. He thought it was just a system bug, but now he wasn't so sure. I showed him my notes, the tap logs, the screenshots. He asked if the badge codes ever repeated. They didn't. Each ride used a unique ID. He nodded slowly and said, "That means someone's reprogramming them. Probably inside access." He gave me his number and told me to call if anything escalated. I never got the chance. 2 days later, he was transferred out of the county. No explanation. Just gone. I left a voicemail asking if he'd requested the transfer. Never got a reply. But a week after that, his name disappeared from the staff roster in the city directory. On a hunch, I asked to review footage from the Grover Terminal security camera. Took me a week to get access, but I finally did. The footage showed the bus at 12:42 a.m., just like always. Doors open. And for a split second, one frame, there's a blurred shape at the steps, human-sized, right in the doorway. It never moves forward, never boards, just glitches, like a person half caught in motion, then gone. I slowed the footage frame by frame. There was no solid form, just a distortion, like heat shimmer, but vertical, tall, shoulders, a bag at the feet maybe. It was only visible for 2 or 3 frames, then vanished. I showed it to a guy I know who works tech for the city. He said the camera system has night vision and thermal fallback, but there was no heat signature. Whatever it was didn't register in IR. That shouldn't be possible. He asked me if I was running a side project, some kind of AR overlay or drone capture. I told him no. He didn't believe me. I haven't heard from him since either. They shut me down after that, told me to take 2 weeks unpaid leave, said I'd worked too many overnight shifts without rest, but they also pulled the 216 off the route sheet temporarily, replaced it with a different ID, and shifted the schedule by 20 minutes. My badge no longer grants access to fare logs, but I've got screenshots, and I've got the entry times memorized. 12:42, 12:43, 12:46. They're getting more frequent. Whoever's doing it, it's not random. A week later, I tried pulling the logs again from a public kiosk. The card reader wouldn't accept my code. A message popped up. Route 216 does not exist. I checked the schedule. Sure enough, it had been scrubbed. But that night, I drove past the old path anyway, just to see. And there it was. A bus. Same markings. Same number. Just a new driver I didn't recognize, slumped behind the wheel at a red light. I called 911 so that someone could check on the driver. Due to the weird circumstances, I kept my distance. While I waited, I watched from my car as the rear doors opened. No one got off. But the light above the steps flickered like someone was standing there. I left once the ambulance arrived. Then I drove past Milson Industrial last night just to see it again. Old habit. The stop sign was gone, just the pole left, and a fresh boot print in the gravel beside the bench. The industrial yard lights were off, but one warehouse had a door open, just a crack, barely visible, like someone slipped inside and didn't bother closing it. The boot print bothered me. It wasn't mine. I hadn't gotten out. It was new. No dust, no leaves, Just sharp tread like it had just been made, like someone had stepped out and was planning to come back. I parked across the street and watched for 20 minutes. No one emerged, but the door never moved either. It just stayed cracked, an invitation or a warning. Eventually I left, but I left with the sense that I'd interrupted something, like I'd gotten there too early or too late. I don't take the bus anymore. Not at night. Not ever. But I check the logs when I can. There's ways around the firewall, and the entries are still coming. Same ID ranges, same times. Someone is riding the 216th, and nobody's driving it anymore. I think they're using the route, not for transportation, but for access, like a timed key through certain parts of the city, places no one's supposed to reach. I don't know how many are involved. I don't want to know. But someone's getting on, someone's getting off. And every week, the log entries go up. Last night there were 7, and the city says the route doesn't exist.